This is the ERP Advisor.
Today's episode, how to maximize the value of your ERP system.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining us for today's webinar, How to Maximize the Value of Your ERP System. Quentin DeWitt is one of our speakers for today. Quentin has been in the information technology business for over 20 years. He has led teams as a director of IT, brought innovative products to market as a product manager, and led large teams as a director of technical support. Today, he provides leadership and guidance to ERP Advisors Group's consulting team through a wide variety of technical knowledge, experience, and skills. Quentin serves as EAG's principal consulting. In this role, he provides senior technical guidance to our entire delivery team and supports the consulting division with executive oversight. His expertise is essential in serving as a project lead on our most technical projects, delivering independent and objective guidance to ensure clients select the right enterprise solution to meet their needs. And Sean is joining us once again.
Hey!
Most of you know Sean, but Sean is the founder and managing principal of ERP Advisors Group based in Denver, Colorado. Sean has almost 30 years of experience in the enterprise software industry, helping hundreds of clients across many industries with selecting and implementing a wide variety of enterprise solutions. His podcast, The ERP Advisor, has dozens of episodes with tens of thousands of downloads, and that number just keeps going up, and is featured on prominent podcast platforms such as Apple and Spotify. On today's call, Quentin and Sean will break down the key steps to getting the most of your existing ERP and taking advantage of new capabilities for your business. Welcome, Quentin and Sean. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you as always.
Yes, and Sean, you were a pleasant surprise. You were originally not supposed to be on the call, and we were able to flip things around. You haven't been here in a while, so our viewers are probably surprised and excited to see you.
Yeah, it's great.
And we loved you.
Yeah.
We always, as your introduction suggests, you have a very impressive background and you do a lot for our clients. So I know you're very recognized every time you come on the podcast.
Yeah, it's gone from 20 to more like 30 plus years now, but
it sounds
I'll
better.
leave it at 20.
Exactly.
We update it whenever we can, and then a lot of the calls, I'm either in the background watching you, Sean, or listening to you talk. You guys talk about how many years you've been in the industry.
I know,
so
it's crazy. It's a lot.
It's an impressive background that I think has led us to this conversation today. We do a lot around selecting and implementing ERPs, but we really realize, like, as we're entering the era of AI and we're entering this new kind of ERP renaissance, as you like to call it, Sean, there's an opportunity for us to talk a little bit more about maximizing the value of your ERP, which is really that optimization phase.
Yep.
And just to kick us off so that everyone on the call has some background, what does it mean to optimize your ERP, Sean?
Okay. Let's see. I think a good way to set some context is it depends on how recent you've implemented your ERP. That's a politically correct way of saying how old is your ERP, actually. But let's say you've implemented very recently and went live with an application in the last year. Your optimization steps are going to look a certain way versus you've had an app for a long time. Your optimization steps may be something totally different. But like you said, Rebecca, and I think this is why I'm looking forward to the discussion, is we talk to a lot of companies, nonprofits, government agencies, quasi-government, public, private. We talk to a lot of people. I guess you guys really talk more to them than I do these days, which is amazing. But everybody wants to optimize for AIs, right? So that's sort of in the background here of what we're talking about. And so we'll kind of set the stage for what optimization is, and then I think we'll dive into some of the AI-specific stuff coming up.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Okay. So like I said, two ways to look at it. I think we have sort of a new system and an existing system, newer system. So on a newer system, say again, you implemented in the last year, there's like a 99.99% chance you didn't implement everything you needed. Right? Where there's, yeah. Does that sound familiar?
That does sound very familiar.
Quentin gets to handle all those clients now, so that's great, which is amazing. So there was a bunch of scope that was in the needs and the selection, right? Requirements are this big, and then you get into the implementation, and there's a few OMG moments where we say, okay, let's go with this, but let's get it live, right? Get into the system, get using it because you thought it was this, but you're actually going to get that because it's a new system, and you start using it. And like you're getting some major functionality benefits to be able to automate parts of the business, that you didn't even know before. But then there's more. Then it's going back to that other part of the list. Like, how do we really handle this, right? So that's kind of sort of like an existing system optimization or new system optimization, newer. Existing system is sort of like everything's on the table. So we've had this app for a while. We don't really want to change for whatever reasons. I can think of 6 of them, but I'm not going to list those out because they're all painful. That's usually what it all has in common is it's super painful to change, right? So then what kind of optimization can we do for an existing app? And there's things like, hey, let's layer on an e-commerce solution to clean up the data, right? That's a huge effort, but it's usually worthwhile, especially if you're going to move to something new, all the way to automation to, adding, Claude on top of it. So, there's 2 different sort of categories. And so I think for the listeners, for the people that are listening now or the people on the treadmill that listen to this on the podcast, you sort of have to bucket yourself into one of those categories first, because what we're about to talk about sort of is like geared around that. So that's kind of a good context, I think, to start. Does that make sense to you, Rebecca? What do you think?
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. And I think Shelby, who was going to be on this call but actually is doing a lot to help our clients right now, was talking about the new system. You're really in that stabilizing phase. I thought that was a great way to put it for anybody who might be on this call who is a client. Is going through that process. Like, you have to stabilize and get in a good place before you're actually even considering doing what we're talking about on this call today.
Yep.
And Q, you actually had some interesting points about existing systems that I'd love for you to touch on.
Yeah, when existing systems are there, you really don't want to change unless you really have to. But you did probably implement them years ago. Your organization was operating in a certain way. Your business had certain needs at that time. And that's the way you implemented the software. But over time, you've evolved, you've changed, you've grown. Maybe you've shrunk. Maybe you've opened up new service lines, new products, and your needs have changed, but your software configuration didn't. Yeah. That's a perfect place for optimization. You don't necessarily have to replace it, but you might need to restructure. You might need to configure new software. There may be modules or areas that you've never taken advantage of because back then you didn't need them, and you're not even aware that they exist in the software. So that's a perfect existing system optimization outline to say, oh, let's readjust the software to our current business needs.
Yeah. And the scope is rarely ever the same from the first time that you did it to now that you're ready to take on more functionality. And that's a good life lesson. I think all of us, it's like dating in your 20s.
Here we go.
Versus who you're going to be with in your 30s. You're a different person. So your business is the same way. Like, what you needed 10 years ago is very different than what you need now.
Well, but don't you think too, Rebecca? I mean, as we're talking to a lot of vendors, right? We could put in a little plug for a leaders in ERP interview we have coming out. That's pretty exciting. So, with a small software company that what did your friend say? There was some kind of a derogatory phrase that they used about them, but yes. Anyway,
I don't feel like I should say that.
Don't say it. Don't say it. But anyway. Great software companies in general that we just met with some key people with. And I would say and ask you, Q, so do you see instances where like prospects come to us and they're like, oh my gosh, I need to change ERP, right? And you're like, oh, do you really want to do that when you should just optimize? Like, tell us about that.
Constantly, actually. That's one of the pre-qualifiers before we even want to engage with the client is like, do they really need to change? Do they really need our help? Or should they really just kind of take a step back, evaluate what's going on in their current systems and resolve those? Because sometimes it's not actually even new software is not going to solve their problem. So maybe it's a people issue, a process issue, a change management issue, and sometimes it is a software issue, but it's not necessarily enough of an issue to say, let's swap software. Let's go and do that. That's why a needs analysis is really the right step to go, do you truly need to do this? Or could you save a ton of money and trouble and heartache and just stay on your current platform and do some optimization, which is something we wholeheartedly endorse. Like, if a prospect comes to us, that's my first line. Like, do we have to do this? Because don't do it unless you really have to.
To switch systems.
Don't switch systems, but evaluate it, see if it's the right thing to do. But I'd much rather give them a recommendation to say, optimize. Here's how you can leverage what you've currently got and really use it to propel your business into the future rather than saying you have to switch your systems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Q, what you're talking about is kind of a best practice. It was something you and I were talking about in preparation for that, which is a perfect segue into our next question that I would love for you to kick us off, Q. what are the best practices for developing a phased approach to optimization?
So, developing a phased approach is you really can't bite off everything at once. You've really got to look at what functionality is going on, what are your business needs, and what's going to have the most impact to change. You've got pain points, you've got limitations that you're running into, and you're trying to grow your business, you're trying to evolve your business. And so what's going to actually make the most impact there, give you the most value? And so you need to tackle that from a functional area by functional area perspective, prioritize those, see what's going to actually get you the value. There's another factor. There's a lot of stuff people want to do. And that's great. They have ideas, they want to grow the business, they want to implement AI everywhere. That's great, but what can you do?
Yeah.
And what's really possible, and you need to evaluate that, and that's how you build your phased approach. Go, what's the functional area? What takes priority? What can we actually accomplish? And then structure it over a time that makes sense. Don't try to do it all at once.
Great point.
Yeah, and I think, is there a difference? I mean, we were talking about existing versus new systems. Like, does that approach change, or is it very similar across both types?
It's actually a little bit different with a new software system because you're almost in a reverse approach. You're just getting into the software. You don't really know its full capabilities. So you're more growing into it rather than going and analyzing what was wrong with your current approach and adjusting it. So it's growing into it, really leveraging the modules, the functionality, more so than you did before. It's taking functions that your business may never have had in the first place and then developing them. And so that's more of the optimization approach on the new software or new systems side of things versus the existing systems.
Yeah.
So it's very different, but it comes out to primarily the same thing. When you're doing a phased approach, you still want to look at that. It's like, what's going to have the most impact first? What is the real value for our business? What's going to have the most ROI? Things of that sort to determine what should come in what sequence. Sometimes it's about the people, though, and what they're clamoring for the most. And never underestimate the people aspect of this, because without the people, it doesn't matter. So really look at the people side of it, and is it a change management? Is it a process management thing? And then fit the configuration and the optimization to that.
Yeah.
I think there's a good nugget to put on top of that, especially for the people that are listening that are interested in optimizing. Maybe they have a strategic initiative as part of their individual business goals for the year to optimize their system or get more value or do AI, whatever. Like what Quentin said, I don't know if I've ever heard like a software vendor say what Quentin just said.
Right.
Maybe you don't need to change and you should optimize. I mean, there's some good salespeople out there. We work with a lot of great people that I know they wouldn't sell an app if it wasn't really necessary,
Yeah.
That's true.
But there's probably more of an opportunity for optimization than most people realize.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like Quentin said, like when you're doing a project with your enterprise applications, I mean, even if you're like, oh, we're just going to add something small. We have new third-party logistics providers for a consumer goods company. We have to put in some more EDI, electronic data interchange or whatever. Like you kind of got to do it because your 3PL uses it, or you have a big customer that you got that requires you to get on their network, or projects companies that have to do resource allocation are just wonky because they've got really big. Like that's still hard. Like every single one of those initiatives is like challenging and difficult. And like the software is like that hard. The people side is what makes it really difficult. So, if the more software change, there's like a formula we should come up with, like, and it's not an inversion. It's like the more software change, like there's probably 10x change of impact to people. It's probably in the orders of magnitude of 10 to 20x. Yeah. So if you're going to do a change, just know your people are going to freak out. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And how do we do this? And da-da-da-da-da. And so then you got to manage that. And then you got to make sure the technology is right. So, balancing like how much do you really do? And that's not usually the approach that most IT companies take. They're like, yeah, we can do this. It's going to be great, yada, yada. And then, oh, by the way, good luck with that. So it's important.
Yeah, and I think this conversation is becoming more and more important, even as the vendors are coming out with new solutions to implement in 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, the system, the bones will be in place, but that doesn't mean my people will be ready in 3 weeks. That doesn't mean my data is going to be ready in 3 weeks. And doesn't even begin to describe the timing for the business or the resources, energy, people.
One point we didn't talk about is the business disruption these projects take. Is like, can the business afford to have the disruption? Whether it's people or software optimization, it's like, yes, You can roll out an ERP, a new ERP, in 3 weeks, data, whatever, but the people won't be ready. And what's the disruption to the business, and can you actually leverage that? And so that's another conversation around optimizations, like, should you really do that? And how do you do that in a way that actually works?
Yeah, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. But what I would like for our listeners, I think they really latch onto real examples. Do we have any examples off the top of your head of some clients that we were able to help adjust to that optimization time frame, or maybe that were a little unique?
Yeah, I mean, I had something like right off the cusp that just happened I'd like to share. We haven't even talked about this one, but it's a former client of ours that we had gotten them into a product, and it's a nonprofit. And so a lot of nonprofits have been impacted in different ways over the last several years.
Yeah.
And they've been impacted bad, like their funding's, it's gone down. And so now they have a software solution that they put in place for 150 or 200 people to use, and now they don't have that many users, so they have to negotiate the contract and the renewal, and that's a whole nother topic, because the vendors basically want to keep you at the amount of recurring revenue that you're doing, and they'll give you a ton of stuff for free to keep you at that number, but if you really don't need it, it's really hard to reduce those contracts. Quentin knows because he just negotiated several of them. There are good vendors that will right-size things for sure, but it's challenging. But anyway, so now the director of IT was saying, okay, I'm thinking I want to switch systems, right? Can I just go to QuickBooks and just get out of this, quagmire of licensing and crazy stuff? And it's like, no, look at the optimization steps for sure, right?
Yeah.
Like if you built the app and implemented the app with the requirements, everything was met, we got it live, it was very successful implementation, but then boom, things changed, like you said, Q. So if we had 150 users and now only 50 really are in the system, and we're doing more manual stuff with the 100, or they're not there, what can we do to optimize this app versus just switching? And so I think what I saw that I would offer to our listeners is that, especially on the IT side, I think it's so easy for us to go into this, like, I gotta change mode. I think that's an English word, got to, something. I have to change. So I'm going to start shopping, I'm going to start looking, and but I can save a lot of money by going into something smaller. And you do need to look. You need to listen to podcasts like this. Like, you need to be educated. But man, 9 times out of 10, you're crazy for changing.
Yeah.
Like, you really don't get the business benefit. But the individual maybe gets the benefit of going through, a change of systems. They get that experience, and you really have to think with like the enterprise, like the organization, the nonprofit that you're looking at, like what's really the greatest good here, not just for you or to, we're going to save $50,000 a year because we're going to reduce our expenses, but like how much more risk are you going to bring in, right? Yeah. So at a high level, the optimization sort of needs to account for those basics, right? And then, okay, can we use the app? If we're not going to change, now let's optimize. Now let's go in and see what we can do to reduce users, move them over to a point system, do this, do that. And there are really good solutions there that maybe even when we implemented weren't there before. Yeah. So that's kind of a high-level thing I'd add. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've been through several optimization projects with existing software, with new software. And there was a client recently who had been on a leading enterprise tier 2 application for over a decade. And over that decade, there had been functions that they had built out and extensively built out, but then they had migrated a lot of that need and that functionality to other apps, their CRM, their procurement application. And so the initial configuration of the software was no longer really in the structure, and they had extra licenses, extra modules. They weren't even using it, but they were paying a large amount of money to continue to keep that in place. Right. And so their optimization was like, great, should we just remove this software and go get something else? It was like, no, you have all the bone work and everything's working, all these complex integrations and interconnects and data flowing back and forth, and all your historical information, which is a big piece of the puzzle that a lot of organizations are like, oh, should we just switch? Well, you're going to lose all that detailed history that you've had for that over a decade of all those transactions and exactly what occurred. And they're like, well, we want to leverage all this AI. I was like, you need that data to leverage AI in a new system.
Yeah.
So let's look at what's in the current system. And we really looked and we went, great, they can keep the system in place. They do have AI functions there, but they can shrink it. They can optimize back to what it's really doing, deprecate some of those licenses and some of those modules that they didn't need, and it came out great. They were able to cut their costs in half, really continue to leave the system in place, not have all of the people change, the change process, the change management, the headache of implementing the ERP. It was a great outcome. But they still got everything that they needed.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been kind of gearing towards more of the existing systems and some of the things just in this last few minutes. I would like to turn it back to new systems. And this is one of my favorite questions when we were talking about it, Q, and I know you had some opinions, but these new systems, you already have a lot going on in your ERP. It's chaotic. You're probably still stabilizing a little bit. But you may feel like you need to be seeking additional functionality outside of your ERP. There might be pressure from your team where they're like, this is still manual. Why on earth is it still manual? Or, great, there's AI. We should just be throwing it in there. When you already have so much going on in an implementation of your new system, like, why on earth would you start going out to try and find third-party solutions or throw something on top?
Well, the first I would say, don't do it unless you have to again. Anytime you add a bolt-on, you're adding complexity, you're adding extra cost, you're adding change management, training, adjustments, and so forth. So the first thing to do is really look at what you're trying to accomplish. Yes, maybe your current systems actually have AI functionality, but you never looked. So evaluating, say it's AI related, evaluating what they can actually do. Almost every software company out there is building AI into their platforms at one layer or another. And so maybe it's not everything you've heard of and on all of the news outlets and things like that, but there is functionality there. So always look at what you've got and explore with your provider, with your partners in that, and see what it's capable of first before going outside. So why on earth? Well, don't do it again unless you have to, but really explore what you've got currently, because I would say for most implementations of software platforms, you're really only using 60% of what you actually have. And so do you really know what you've got? Are you really leveraging it? And so before you go outside, before you create complexity there, look at what you've got, explore it down to the functionality level, see what can actually be done. Sometimes you don't have to have full AI. Maybe it's just machine learning or some automation that could be put in. And they've actually built that, but you never implement it. Maybe you have to update a version or something like that, and that can be hard, but sometimes it's already there. But sometimes you hit bottom there, and you really can't get the functionality of it. But do that first, look, and then go, great. If I really need deep, complex functionality and I can find something that really works well with my current systems, that's when you start to go and look outside of the box. But it's kind of the last ditch effort, not the first one.
And a lot of people will take like even an AI large language model and start layering stuff on top of their products. And I mean, we're experimenting more and more, not with client data, right? No proprietary. Good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. That was a test. Sign up that AI policy. Adhere to. But it's sort of like the exact opposite of what you said, Q, which is like if you've got tools. God, we're so conservative as a firm. That's what I keep hearing. But after you've been not beat, well, maybe a little, with problems from clients and situations occurring, you tend to be like, okay, let's really think through this before we go out on a limb, right?
Yeah. I would say it's practical.
There you go. We're like boring practical.
Yeah, I think
like
we understand the reality of the failures and what actually goes on, and we've seen some crazy things which have made us turn that strategy a little more here's what's realistic as opposed to shooting for the stars. Unless it is a client that we need to shoot for the stars with, right?
That's right. That's a good way to say it. She's good. That's why she's in marketing. Wouldn't it be great if there was somebody out there who was truly independent, truly objective, and who really cared about what you needed? That's ERP Advisors Group. That is exactly what we do. We have a proven methodology that will take you through the needs analysis, selection, implementation, and even optimization, where you'll go from being confused and upset and scared and unsure all the way through to having successful software that does exactly what you need it to do. We'd like to offer you a free consultation. Click on the button down below and let's spend a few minutes, even 10, 15 minutes, and talk about your project. And I bet you'll be surprised. There'll be some things we can do for you, even over that call, that would help you, much less talk about how we could work with you over the duration of your project. And just know you don't have to do this project alone. You don't have to face these confusions on your own. It's exactly what ERP Advisors Group is here for, and we look forward to helping you through your process.
Shelby brought up a good point when we were actually preparing for this call, and Q, you and I touched on this a little bit, was sometimes, like, there needs to be a business case, and sometimes you have an issue that someone's coming to you with, but there's a workaround for it in the ERP.
Yeah.
And maybe they're frustrated because they think it could be automated. They think that their job would be 10 times better with this piece, going back to, okay, then pay for it. But that doesn't necessarily signal that you need additional stuff. But if you have 5 issues that are causing everybody's lives to be harder, maybe that's much more of an indicator.
Yeah, there's a threshold. It's like, it's the amount of business impact, the amount of pain you're experiencing, the number of, maybe it's limiting your growth and your ability to move forward and execute on an expansion that your organization is doing. But it is something that you have to evaluate, and there is a threshold. There's a line in the sand. It's like, once you've crossed it, then it's like, yes, you have to do this. You're going to get much more value in investing, even if it's hard, even if it's, it takes a bit of time in doing it than not doing it. But people will give complaints about things, and you just have to really observe and look past the complaint to go, what's actually going on. And it's like, if you have something that's workable enough, maybe it's not in the system and you do use a spreadsheet for something, but it's very viable. It works for your business. It doesn't create a lot of extra work. It's not taking 40 hours a week to manage outside the systems or multiple people. It's a viable solution. Yeah. So you look at outcomes, you look at what's this really going to do, because say, oh, we need to fix that and get that spreadsheet activity into the system, and it shouldn't be outside the system. But in order to do that, we have to buy 3 different applications. We have to integrate them. We have to rewrite this. We have to hire 4 more people. It's going to take 1.5 years to do, and it really only relieves one person of 20 hours of work a week.
Yeah.
That's not valuable. And so look before you leap.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah, my head hurts just hearing you talk about all of that effort. And Q, I'm actually coming back to you, but Sean, feel free to jump into this. Before we get into the AI conversation, don't worry, everybody, it's coming. Often there are other obstacles to getting the most out of your ERP that aren't based in functionality. Can you speak a little bit about what some of those obstacles are?
Yes. I mean, people. A lot of it is around people. It's around training. It's around testing. It's around your users being change resistant, because it's hard. They don't want to do it. Maybe they never signed up for this. There's also best practices. It's like, did they really look at what was right for the organization? And maybe there's some process adjustment that has to get in there. Maybe you need to do some process mapping. So there's a lot of things that are outside of functionality that can be optimization tasks or things that can improve things. But most of it's really around people. The next layer is process. So look at what your people are saying, look at what they're doing, look at what struggles they're having. If it's related to not being able to utilize the system, that's about training, that's about testing, that's about education and getting them onboarded with standard operating procedure. If it is something where the processes just don't work, they weren't designed to do what they do, then it's process optimization, it's process mapping, it's adjusting that. Maybe it's best practice. Everyone does it differently and nobody's standardized on something, so of course the system can't do it right, because everybody does it differently. So then that's about standardizing and using best practices. So these are all not necessarily functionality related. The system still can process a PO or bring in a payment, but those are the areas where you can also look at optimization outside of functionality.
Yeah, absolutely. And Q, you brought up an interesting point about the vendor. You and I were talking about this and leaning into them for best practice. I'd love for you to dig into that.
Yeah, oftentimes, especially when you're doing a new implementation or new software and you're getting into the optimization phase, people push back on their vendors and go, no, it has to be this way. Right. But what we recommend is that, push back on your vendors to say, how should we do this? The software was built in a specific way. It was built for best practices. It was built to support your business model. That's why you selected it. Well, don't try to force it into the shape that you were. Go to your vendor, talk to them, find out what they recommend, and have them push back on you to say, here's the way you should be doing it. This works very well for the industry. We see the best outcomes based on this way of doing it. and be willing as an organization to let your vendor push back and give you best practice. That's often something we find in optimizations, especially where they're like, well, we want to optimize the software to do it the way we've always done it for 20 years. We're like, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Red flag vendor. Really tell them how they should be doing this. That will take, hundreds of hours out of that process of trying to rebuild it the way they want, they used to do it, and organize it. But they have to be open to it.
So much of systems is really about interpersonal relationships and communication. And so I've seen that play out. We've seen that play out where a client says, okay, we need blah, and it's a customization. And the vendor says, okay, yeah, we can do that. And then they start and their lead developer quits. Right? And then boom, project is late. And then the client's like, okay, but I need this. And now I don't think you guys can deliver it. And then the vendor says, but we are working on it. And here's the first draft. And then the client says, that's not what I wanted. And it's like a nuclear bomb goes off and there's like, carnage everywhere. But you're right, especially in the optimization, that you do sort of like hitch your wagon to that vendor, right? Once you've gotten, especially for a newer system, you're in that product and you've got your implementation partner, like use them, like truly look to them as advisory. And they all love, the good ones really are great advisors. They really want that relationship with you, with you, especially if you just implemented with them. And they do know what they're talking about. And, maybe if you're in a conversation, the specific person you're working with, you get like kind of a weird vibe off them. Okay, fine. Go to the manager or somebody, the sponsor from the implementation partner side, say, hey, I think I need to talk to somebody else. And boom, they bring somebody in who has experience, whatever. It does happen. But they do know what they're talking about. And so when you say, I need to do blah, and they're like, ooh, like you see that, like that's my tip for this whole call. I always try to leave a nugget. That when you do this on Zoom or in person or Teams or whatever, but like when you ask for something of your vendor, especially in optimization, watch how they respond. Hey, we want to do this little thing over here that required da-da-da-da-da. There's like a second wince, like the person on the other kind of winces. Like, oh wait, what are you thinking? What was that? Yeah, we can do that. No. I can tell that what are you really thinking? Well, like we have a client right now that we're implementing with. This is during the implementation. I think we've been working with it for a while, but our client has very complex business processes on manufacturing. It's kind of discrete, but it's kind of not. It's these very custom sort of decal kind of things that they do. And, everybody, including us, like, yeah, we think this solution can handle it. And then we get into the gory guts details of this. Like, no, it can't. Like, okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to change them and go to another app. No, we're not. We're not going to do it because if this one has a hard time doing it, that one's going to have a hard time. So the point I'm trying to say, to just reiterate what you said, Q, is like, you're not just buying a software. You are buying the people around the solution, the implementers, or even the support people from the software implementation or from the software company. And you really need to listen to them so that you don't do something stupid later, or that you don't, optimize in an area that's like super vital, but they're trying to tell you don't do that. But most vendors don't just say no. They'll say, okay, it's going to be 1,000 hours, we think. Okay, which means like 4,000 at $200 an hour. It's $800,000. Maybe it's not that big, but I mean, we've seen these things escalate to that level. Yeah. So like really pay attention to the communication cycle with your implementation partner, and whether they're saying something or not, they are communicating to you. And if you can spot that early, then you're ahead of the curve, and maybe you need to go talk to somebody else. You can always call us. I mean, anytime we can get you going to the right direction with, Quentin at ERP Advisors Group, literally. Probably need to change it to Q at, but QUENTIN at ERP Advisors Group. Like and we can dish it out to the right person on the team, but like we'll help you go to the right people to get the right advice. But then you actually have to listen to them and take the advice. Don't just say, no, I need to do this optimization. Like maybe you shouldn't. Here's why, right? Or look, we really, 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 really need this for these reasons. Like, great, we're going to find a solution for you. It's totally possible.
Yeah. And now it's time. We're at that point in the call where we're going to talk about AI.
Good. We did good for 20 minutes to talk about it.
Yeah, not talk about it until now. But again, I alluded to this at the beginning of the call, that now with optimization in the era of AI, this ERP renaissance, AI is a huge part of optimizing your system. And even sometimes there is functionality you get at the very beginning. But Sean, how do you handle the AI conversation in an existing system versus a new system?
Well, I think most of the companies and nonprofits, organizations that we're working with today are getting either a mandate, a request, or a strong suggestion from somebody up lines to use AI, right?
Yeah.
We need to use AI. Why? I don't know. Just use it. But then there are others that are like, we need to reduce costs in this area, or we're growing and we don't want to add a lot of headcount or whatever. Like there's good reasons to have that conversation too. So I think there's so many different, I mean, even for us, right? We're just talking about it today. Like, what is the right AI strategy? And, I think, as it's evolving every minute, it seems like literally every day, we traditionally have said, let's rely on your ERP vendor for AI solutions. They will handle the security issues. They will handle the data integrity issues. They'll handle integrations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And I still think there's a lot of validity to that, especially as we're talking to more of our leaders in ERP on that podcast, and we're talking to the CTOs, the CEOs of these, senior vice presidents of sales, like these people who are really deeply involved in the ERP industry, and we start to really understand their strategies. Like, wow, you'd be crazy to try to do this on your own. That's kind of what comes out of it, frankly. But what are you trying to solve? Like, again, going back to our conversation we just had earlier with Natalie, with our own team, what are we trying to solve with AI? If it's, how can I graphically show this information? Okay, fine. You can go to an LLM for that, But if it's like, I want to do my reconciliations for my bank accounts 10 times faster, okay, you need to work with somebody who knows how to do bank account reconciliation. Seems like it's simple, but it's not. Or available to promise dates, or line optimization for manufacturing, or even project resourcing. How do we match up projects with the resources that should be assigned to a project, and not just, every services firm has a Natalie that they call and say, hey, who should we put on this project, right?
Yeah.
Maybe our AI will be called Ask Natalie. That'd be cool. I don't know. Hopefully she's listening. She'll be like, yeah, I like that. Yeah. She'd probably want like a license fee for it. So I don't know. But anyway, so you've got to like carve out the problem that you're trying to solve. That's what I'm trying to say. If you cannot say, this is the problem I'm trying to solve, don't start talking about an AI solution. And but at the same time, it's cool to practice and play around. And we were just chatting with one of our analysts, or consultants now, a couple of days ago, and Hannah was coming up with some pretty cool stuff. Totally safe, totally above boards on our AI policy. I was like, okay, that's amazing. I remember like 2 or 3 years ago saying this, that you have to have people in your organization that are just super curious about how to use AI, and just make sure they don't put anything out they shouldn't. Which we're really like super good about. But that's also what can kind of drive some use cases too, is somebody's like just experimenting with that. So I think if you can look at the business problem that you're trying to solve, right? And then you just, as normal, Quentin and the team and our needs analysis team, like they look at solution types, right? Before you look at a solution, you look at the type of solution. Oh, we need AI, so we're going to use Claude or ChatGPT. But you need AI for like financial reporting and analysis. That would lead you towards a different type of solution, right? So, but no, we're just going to pump all our data in, and some people are doing that into Claude. They're pumping it in, and then they're getting financial reports back. And so, like find out what problem you're trying to solve first. Then there's the solutions in the market, and I've been using Grok a lot to find out what are the types of AI solutions that are out there, right? So it will pull the information for you, but now you can start going down the path of like a sane selection process, where you do know what you're trying to solve. You do know the types of solutions that are there. You've got to find out about the pricing, because as some of these large tech companies are learning with the tokens, that their employees are just like racking up hellacious fees on these things. That's a big deal. And there's chargebacks to departments, but even then, did they really budget for the amount of usage of the enterprise versions of these apps last year? They didn't.
Yeah.
And did they get value out of all of that?
And we don't even know, right? But maybe there's one thing that just knocked the ball over the out of the park with some automation that we did. So it's find the solution, find the problem, then look at the solution types, then look at specific solutions. Make sure you understand your costs. Make sure you've got your benefits defined. Understand your change management risks, and boom, there's the recommendation. Let's go to the stakeholders, find out what they're thinking, get some confirmation, so if it's a bomb, at least other people than you are stuck with that mess, and then go into it. Right? Do a pilot program. What did we say yesterday? Not a pilot program, but use cases.
Yeah, use cases. Pilot feels. Yeah.
I don't know what the problem was with that.
Yeah, it's just a little different.
Just a little different. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but so run a couple use cases, in a small environment. That's definitely what we're doing. And then go forward. No different than anything we've ever done in tech over the years. But I will tell you, it really is changing. So once you get that policy in place, okay, this is exactly what we're going to do. A new model comes out from the competitor that's like 10 times better. But you know what? Maybe if we do what we decided to do and we just do it really, really well, it doesn't matter what all the noise is coming out. It's like, we went to this ERP and then next month some other ERP comes onto the scene. Just stick with what you have and then be committed with that and then grow with it, and you'll get a ton of value.
Yeah, and frankly, the way that the market's going, so many of those systems and so many of those agents are going to be so customized, and there's going to be, with these orchestration studios, agent studios, marketplaces, people are going to have more access to getting customized experiences. So you're not going to be pigeonholed so long as you pick a vendor that is innovating and putting policies in place so that you can continue to access that functionality. And I think it's going to be unlike anything we've really seen in ERP, considering customization is kind of a taboo word. Mm-hmm. But we're going to have to do that with AI.
Within the current software field, AI is really an optimization and enhancement tool to everything else you're doing. Leverage it that way rather than as a single standalone solution. It can be in certain cases, but it's really anything you're doing with software. You could potentially built-in tools, external tools, orchestrated tools, really use it to optimize and enhance, because it's not a replacement for everything you're doing. It can speed it up. It can evolve it. It can do it faster. It can add value in different ways. So, that's something that I think when we're doing analysis and trying to how does AI factor into your strategy as an organization? Most of the time they're like, well, we just needed to make things better. And it's like, oh, well, okay, let's target that a little bit more. It's like, where can we optimize with it? Where can we actually enhance your business and resolve a real problem that gives you value? Because you don't want to do it just to do it. You want to get value out of it. So that's something we've really been seeing a lot, because AI is not just one thing. There's a ton of different types of AI systems, ways to leverage it, models. So,
yeah, I think one thing I would offer too that could be helpful for people is, regardless, just put the AI thing over to the side for a minute. So you have to have great enterprise data, right? It's like, again, here's the boring conservative Sean right now, right? But it's true. And that data needs to be clean. Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, Quentin, the more history we have, the better. Mm-hmm. And then there's transaction processing that happens on top of that, just business process automation, procure to pay, order to cash, design to build, project lifecycle, blah, 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 record to report. How are those processes working today? Oh, they're super manual. We do it all in Excel and everything else. Okay, well, we probably just need like an old boring ERP to put in there. Fine. Then you start like the interconnection, interoperability, integrations with other systems and all that. That's great. But then now we can really start talking about AI on top of that. And if one of those layers is out, you're going to try to solve the wrong problem with AI, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at like, okay, how can we speed up? I mean, name any business process. What comes to mind? Anything. MRP, materials, requirements, planning, right? Mm-hmm. Which has actually been kind of an AI area for decades. Mm-hmm. Even before ERP, there was MRP. And the promise of MRP was give me your current inventory levels, your forecast for sales, your lead times, your materials lists and substitute parts, and I'll tell you what to buy.
Yeah,
right?
Seasonality,
all sorts right?
Of stuff, yeah.
So now with more AI models, the suggestions that come back, I think, are better, right? Mm-hmm. I can remember many clients we've had over the years that will take a huge MRP plan and say, okay, I'm going to go do this over here.
Yeah.
But the plan says that, yeah, I know, but it doesn't blah, blah, blah. It doesn't account for something. Like, okay, then why do we just do it? Well, I just use it as an input. So I think AI can actually like, okay, what's that other thing you add on top of it? Well, I happen to know for this part of the country at this part of the year, that's hurricane season. So the demand for that type of a property, if it's a hospitality company, goes down. Well, let's add that to the prompt then that goes into the AI model that blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's easier for a human to do that, whereas in an MRP system, it can be complex. So, that tends to make sense. That kind of functionality for AI makes a lot of sense. And there are many, many, many optimizations that you can do with AI. Once again, you have the core data, you've got the basic transaction processing, you have the integration with your apps. Like now it really starts to get exciting. And I think, Ryan Baca from our team runs our optimization sort of department. And he works with all of our clients, and we're going back to all of them saying, we had a promise for what you wanted to accomplish with ERP, but you had to crawl first. Now you have to walk, and now we're ready to like zoom like a SpaceX rocket, and that's going to be powered by AI, and it's very real. But you just have to kind of think through those different layers and, again, the problems that you're trying to solve.
Yeah. And I know we're coming to the end of our time here. Sean, you gave a nugget earlier in the call. Q, I would like you to just kind of round out the conversation. What is the most important thing you would like viewers to walk away from this conversation with?
A lot of people want it all right now. And I would just say the reality is don't try to do it all at once. If you walk away with something that's like, yes, you need to do something. Do optimize. Do something. But don't try to do too much at once. You want to bite off something you can actually chew. You want to do it at a pace where you can actually accomplish it and not try to jump too far forward too rapidly. So do something, but don't do it all at once. That's been what a lot of organizations kind of shoot themselves in the foot, and they try to tackle too much too quickly and not think it through all the way and prioritize it. And so as a nugget, it's like, yes, optimize. Yes, leverage AI. Yes, look at your current system. Yes, look at your new system, but don't try to do everything at once because you don't usually come out very successful with that. Yeah. So that's kind of my nugget from this. Is like, see too many people, too many organizations try to do that and fail.
But at the same time too, I mean, that's sort of our normal response. But you know what? Maybe you just sort of like have a little other person over here that you're like, just kind of go try to do some things.
Yeah,
right? I think we're seeing that. Like,
that is, but like test the waters,
but
expand,
small, like
look
contained.
at it. Don't do nothing.
Right,
that's the wrong thing to do for sure. But really like start, find a starting point, dig in on that starting point. But it's not like, okay, we're going to transform the entire organization to all AI, and we're never hiring another person because we're going to automate all of those new roles tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Good luck on that.
I think that's the perfect way to round it out, just because we did talk about a lot of exciting things, and I know there's people on the call who are like, you know what? It is time for me to do that. There's lots of things I could be doing. That's exciting, but it's good to root everybody back in reality and say like, okay, but tomorrow don't go say we're going to throw Claude on top of our entire ERP system and it's going to be perfect. So thank you both so much for joining us
Thank you,
today.
as always. You're amazing.
Yeah, thank
This
you.
gal's incredible.
I think this was a great conversation, and frankly, it rounds out a lot of the content that we have that we haven't necessarily been talking about, and I think it's very important for customers and anybody who's joining the call. And please let us know if you have any questions or we can answer anything for you. Obviously, Quentin at ERPadvisorsGroup.com. Sure. Sean already shared his email, Rebecca.McCabe at ERPadvisorsGroup.com, and then Sean at ERPadvisorsGroup.com.
SEAN.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah,
It's SHAWN.
Yeah, you think you can get away with that.
That's
people
right.
Know you too much. But we have so many resources, can answer your questions. We're more than happy to do so, and we're more than happy to collaborate if anybody on this call has other thoughts that they'd like to throw out there. So be sure to join us for our next webinar, which is scheduled for Thursday, July 16th, Avoiding the Biggest ERP Selection Mistakes, where our experts will dive deep into the most common mistakes made during an ERP selection and how we can help you avoid them. Please go to our website, ERPadvisorsGroup.com, for more details and to register. ERP Advisors Group is one of the country's top independent enterprise software advisory firms. EAG advises mid to large size businesses on selecting and implementing business applications from enterprise resource planning, customer relationship management, human capital management, business intelligence, and other enterprise applications, which equate to millions of dollars each year across many industries. This has been the ERP Advisor. Thank you again for joining us.